Her doctor was just about to make everything worse. Guys, the woman I'm going to talk to you about today, she's a friend of mine. She lives in Park City at altitude, obviously, and she was having some energy issues. She's early 50s, I believe, and on testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, NP, thyroid, and she was feeling great. And she, like I said, she started having some undiagnosable energy issues. So when her energy dipped, she went to her provider, which is a functional provider, and their initial response was to increase her testosterone. And she was already at 169, which is kind of high for a woman. I particularly like high test levels, but a lot of women don't. My friend liked high levels too, and she was doing really well. She was stabilized for a while. Her level was 169. So what do they want to do? They want to increase testosterone. So they drew labs again because then she started having, after the testosterone increase, she started having sleep problems and mood problems, and cholesterol was through the roof, and some other, brain fog and some other issues that were evident before the testosterone increase. So now she goes from 169 testosterone to 289, which is beyond high. I mean, we're not even talking high normal at this. I like mine around 200, 220. I mean, 289 is even high for me. So then she had all of these symptoms. In addition to, her estrogen went from 90, which is perfect, to 18. So essentially non-existent. So then what? They wanted to increase testosterone again. And they wanted to add red yeast rice. Why? Because they looked at her cholesterol, and her cholesterol was through the roof. So they want to add red yeast rice, which, by the way, is it's actually chemically identical to a statin. So of course it's going to work on cholesterol. And then they also looked at her iron and thought, oh my goodness. Guys, keep in mind, if you don't have iron, you have no energy. So what do? They want to increase her testosterone because she has no energy. So they increase her test. They want to add red yeast rice for cholesterol problems, and they want to add an iron infusion. Meanwhile, they're not even asking why. Guys, it's no secret that high testosterone depletes iron stores. It's not a mystery. Especially if you live at altitude, you have less red blood cells available to you because you're living at altitude. And we're talking Boyle's Law that compresses everything and makes it, anyway, that's a whole nother video. But, so what do they want to do? Let me pause for a second. What do they want to do? They're like, okay, we're going to give her red yeast rice because she has high cholesterol. We're going to increase her testosterone because she has no energy. We're going to give her an iron infusion because she has no iron stores. When your test levels are high, there's a good chance that your iron is depleted, because the higher your test is, the more iron it's going to use, because it needs to carry those red blood cells, because testosterone increases red blood cell production, which uses iron, which uses oxygen, which uses all of these things that they're not even thinking about. And she lives at altitude. I'm not saying that her high test levels tanked her estrogen, which is usually not the case, but it can happen. Usually what happens, if you have a high test level, it's going to aromatize to estrogen, so raising your estrogen levels. But it didn't do that in her case. It was competing with the receptors for whatever reason, probably because her estrogen cream was no longer working, which happens. That's okay. We just have to figure that out and move to the next delivery system. So they got that part right. They put her on a estrogen patch. But they still wanted to increase the testosterone. And remember, when I've said your body loves homeostasis, and testosterone and estrogen work at a ratio, and they're really happy when they're close together. When your test levels rise, that's a problem, because you're further exacerbating that ratio, so you start getting very symptomatic. Then what happens? Your estrogen drops, and meanwhile your test is still, so your ratio has gone to hell in a handbasket. There is nothing here. So they're not even working with each other at this point. So then she starts, like I said, she starts having all these symptoms. Her estrogen and test ratio is completely, totally off. And the fix was not more. It was not more. It was less. Because what happens when you reduce the testosterone back to what was working? You restore that ratio, that estrogen testosterone ratio, and everything downstream resolves. So instead of having to give her red yeast rice for high cholesterol, which they wanted to do, I don't know if I mentioned that. Oh yes, but I did, because it's chemically identical to a statin, and they're a functional provider. But you know what? If you get the right delivery system and the right dose, you don't need red yeast rice. I can't say you don't need it. You might not need red yeast rice. So then, what's going to happen if you are treating symptoms? You have high testosterone, you have low energy, you have low iron, you have low estrogen. They want to, and they draw an H&H, hematocrit and hemoglobin, and they say, oh, you have thick blood. We need to do a blood draw to get your blood thinned out. Well, why is your blood thick? Because your testosterone is too high. They're treating symptoms. So what are the symptoms? High testosterone is using up her iron stores. So they want to give her more testosterone, eating up more iron stores. So their solution is to give her more testosterone for the energy problems, which are being exacerbated by further increasing the testosterone, depleting that ratio that needs to exist for homeostasis, which she no longer has. And because of her high cholesterol, because there's no estrogen, what do? They give her red yeast rice. Yeah, it works. But then they want to give her an iron infusion. Okay, well, what they're doing is they're treating symptoms. What is the main cause of all of these symptoms? Her testosterone is too high. When you come down off that testosterone, it doesn't use as much iron, and then you have more iron. So therefore, you don't need an iron infusion. And let's try a different delivery system on the estrogen, which they did. So her estrogen levels climb back up to within normal limits, or what's within normal limits for her. And you're bringing those test levels down. So that ratio normalizes. She starts feeling better. The energy returns because now she has an estrogen delivery system on board that's actually working for her. Her energy is not more tanked because the iron is no longer being eaten up by the high testosterone levels. But yet they're treating everything symptomatically. That's like you have a low air on your car tire, and instead of paying attention to all four tires and doing systematic maintenance as you go, top off the air tire, as you should anyway, or oil levels or whatever. But instead you go to the tire store and get a brand new tire. Does it fix the problem? Yeah. But you're going to have the same problem again when you're driving the car, and you're not doing routine maintenance to maintain those air levels. It's the same problem. It's just a different analogy. They're treating the symptoms, guys. How many minutes am I at here? Let me see. I got 30 seconds to wrap this up. Guys, this is happening to somebody out there watching this. I know this. If she had done this, if she had done the iron infusion and increased the testosterone and done the red yeast rice, she didn't need all of that. She could have just lowered the estrogen, or increased the estrogen, not increase, replace the estrogen with something that's finally working, reduce the testosterone, and bam, everything else falls into place. Guys, this is what I do. I look upstream. I don't treat symptoms.